Hello, YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. This is Trish Jenkins. And are you a frustrated creative? Are you in a workplace where you want to contribute, or have you got all sorts of ideas in your head and you want to try and pin them down? Well, I have got the expert for you. Dianne Devitt is here, and this is what she's going to talk about grabbing those ideas, having the confidence to be creative in your workplace, have the boldness to offer your ideas and really make a change in your life and in the life of your company. And we're going to meet Dianne right after this. The strongest prison bars are in your head. Leaders and teams, it's time for a jailbreak. And welcome back, Dianne.
Thank you, Trish. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you. Well, tell us, just give us a snapshot of what you do that's creative with companies and people.
Well, I tell you, Trish, my background and my career started in meetings, events, and production in an area called destination management. So we were the experience and the engagement experts long before the words became popular and hip. And you focused on bringing people together and keeping them involved through a series of surprises. So when I was in school, I majored in theater. I wanted to find something in business that would allow me to use my theater techniques and my theater traits, but also do it for a business cause. And that's actually what got me into the meetings and events industry. So to be able to come up with an idea that involves people and then bring it to fruition was, and still is, one of the most fulfilling things I do.
That's so awesome, because I hadn't really thought about how it was before. But when I look back and in my early career and going to conferences, it was very much, it's a bit like going to university. You know, you go, you listen, you take notes.
Right.
You leave, and it could be a little boring and it felt like work.
Right.
And so when you bring creativity into it, and you were one of the forerunners of introducing that creativity and fun into conferences and events, and the natural flow is into engagement in the workplace, because yeah, you're right, engagement is sort of that hasn't always been a trendy word. It's now it's essential, because you don't just pay people to turn up and do their job. You want them engaged so they actually do their job well, so that it's effective. They're not just showing up and then going home.
Right.
So it's
well, exactly, Trish. And the thing is that, and I'm so sad to hear you say how many boring meetings you've been to, because they still exist, only they exist now more on the virtual platform as well, right? So there's room for creative virtual meetings, and there are many people who are really conquering that landscape, but then there are many people who clearly aren't. So that's where a lot of Zoom fatigue comes from, by the way, because you're bored.
Hang on. I'm going to interrupt you from Zoom fatigue.
Yes.
That's a good phrase. I've used the phrase, I'm all zoomed out. I just can't possibly face another person droning on, and I'll play Spider Solitaire on my other screen while I'm supposed to be listening.
Right.
Oops. Sorry if you might be one of the people. Not you personally, but if you're listening.
No.
I don't think I'm the only one that has done that.
No. By getting back to that, I think, transferring my skill set that was focused so much on live events for over 25 years into the workplace, and helping people now with creative thinking, innovative thinking, which is desperately needed, right? And especially coming out of the pandemic, it's a very easy transition because in the meetings and events industry, you walk into an empty room, you listen to your client's goals and objectives, and you transfer this into a live experience. Well, now you take the same people that are going to be in that live experience, the dynamics of the people, that everyone is human. They have human elements to them, right? All their communication, their sensory communication. How do you then transfer that into work that's going to benefit the company through innovative thinking, through creative thinking, through processes to get there in a safe and secure environment? And that's critical in business, right?
It's critical because when it's more creative, then it adds value.
Right.
And when it adds value, you have a phrase that you talk about with that to creative.
I do. The creative currency. But think about this for a moment. I'd like to share this with the audience. Is coming from the meeting and event space. A good meeting, a well-planned, deliberately planned meeting creates a safe and secure space for you and me to speak to one another. And if you are in a safe and secure place where you feel that, you're going to trust me. Therefore, you're going to share more ideas. You're going to share more thoughts with me. So now that I'm switching my focus to working with companies, with teams, with corporations, the first and foremost thing to do is establish a safe and secure place that gives people what I call in my book permission to play, permission to speak to me because you're comfortable. And that what comes out of you, those ideas and those creative thoughts is what I call creative currency. It has a value to it that is going to help the company, right? Through this whole environment, this play environment that is allowing me and you to trust one another in a non-judgmental way, right?
Right. Look, I love that because in an environment where there's so much fear, people might have ideas, but they can be afraid to offer them because they'll be shot down or they're just afraid of disapproval. And so if a company, it's like when you often hear at the start of a training, there are no dumb questions. And because you have to be free to ask the questions, even if it might have been you zoned out for a second, but there needs to be an environment where people can offer ideas that may sound dumb.
Right.
And maybe they're not dumb, but they just need reworking and massaging. There's a kernel of something in for the value. So, and that's where leadership is so important, isn't it? That you work with companies and leaders to help them to provide an environment where their team feels free to offer ideas. In fact, I read a study to do with COVID where there were several companies that instead of laying staff off, I remember this one, I can't remember the name of the company, but instead of laying staff off, they said to the staff, this is our situation. Our revenues have dramatically dropped. We're looking for ideas. What can we do together? And the staff and the leaders all agreed to receive less pay. And I think it might have been in lieu of profit sharing later.
Mm-hmm.
And because there was that degree of profit sharing as well, and they wanted to keep their jobs, but that company blossomed and actually grew during the pandemic because they weren't afraid. And just asking that question is a creative thing to do. It's not about painting a wall, is it? It's about how can we be creative and innovative. So I love what you've said there.
Thank you so much. But yes, you're absolutely right, Trish, that, some companies and it's pre-COVID when we were face to face and many were in an office. some people would have an idea box, because people tend to put an anonymous idea in or a comment somewhere. How we have the ability to text, and we can give our opinion anonymously, or we can have a username that covers ourselves up. But you did hit a point where people don't trust themselves. And I do have that phrase that creativity is power. Listening to that little voice in your head. That little voice in your head, by the way, that little voice in your head is speaking to you. It comes from within. It comes from your source. It's not an ego voice. If it's meant to help and to serve and to find a solution, that is a very spiritual thing, in a sense, because you have to trust yourself so much and have that confidence to voice it, right?
Yeah. Creativity is power, and
Yes.
to trust yourself.
Yes,
I
it is.
absolutely love that. And, our theme is resilience.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes courage and resilience to not just trust yourself, but I picked up on something that you'd said to me before about when you are resilient, it enables you to trust yourself to voice your idea. Even if you think that you're in an environment where you're not really free to express your idea, that actually, you might think that your workplace is not welcoming of ideas, but that actually could be just a precept, just a prejudice in your head because of your fear.
Yes, because if you're, I'm going to say this because there's so many different people listening, right? And I know that there are companies that make it very difficult for people to voice an opinion or come up with a solution. Now, but that doesn't mean that it's impossible to voice that opinion or come up with that solution. That just means that you need to work your way in a little bit. So if you and I were working in the same department together, Trish, and I needed to get to whoever our superior was or whoever our boss was, maybe I share my idea with you, and maybe you have a better relationship with the person who it has to get to. That doesn't mean that I don't eventually get the acknowledgement for it, which is also a big thing in business, isn't it? Like you come up with a solution and then somebody takes the credit, and that's
exactly. So how do you talk to me about that? Because I have had I've experienced it myself, where people are in positions where they have an idea. The protocol is you go to your immediate supervisor, and then the immediate supervisor sells your idea to the boss as their own.
Right.
And that can cause a lot of tension and resentment, and then which is really dirty because, it's short-sighted because that supervisor has then got to come back and face you and pretend that, and so there's a lack of integrity there.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that? How would someone handle that? And then is there a way to avoid that happening, or do you just trust the process? But women in particular will not speak up very often.
Yes, in particular. And again, I think it depends on the environment, and it depends on the company you work for. It depends on who your peers are. But, if you truly see something that can help, or you truly see something that can make a difference, my biggest suggestion would be to see if you can organize a meeting yourself, so that when you share your concept, you're sharing it with a few people to hear it. That could be one option. Another option could be to just put your name on it, send an email, and keep it in your file. And when your review comes up, with all respect, because you don't want to be in a position where you are isolating yourself and saying, oh, Trish took my idea. Because again, if you work in a company, you're all working for the common good. What we're talking about here is respect and recognition, and simply saying to someone, thank you. You really made a difference. you see, and that would make all the difference in the world. You'd also like the accolades, and you'd also like the bonus in your paycheck at the end of the year. And that's what I meant about creative currency. I just heard a story last week from someone who is a senior executive in human resources. And she was telling the story about how she ended up with a special project on her plate that no one else wanted. And it needed a lot of resilience, a lot of creative thought, a lot of tenacity, a real stick-to-itness, figuring out and writing a new workbook. And that takes a lot of thought and a lot of creative thought, how you're going to lay it out. It was a massive job. Well, it did so well. It won an award. The company ended up making a couple of $1 million from it. Now, what she very smartly did is take a copy of that check, keep it in her file. And when her review came and her superior said, well, what have you done for the company? And, what have you made she put a copy of the check on his desk and said, that's what I did for the company, and ended up with a sizable raise from it. The other thing I want to bring out with ideas and with innovation and innovative thinking and people like me who go into a company or a team, work with people, is that there is a real process of identifying objectives ahead of time and goals and getting people to think. Are you looking for a new name for ice cream? Are you looking for a new style dress? In other words, what is it that you're looking for? Are you looking for new ways to communicate with your customers? So all of that has to be identified up front so that you have specific direction. Now, that makes sense. That being said, when you were speaking before about ideas and putting them out, brainstorming, mind mapping, there are no wrong ideas. If I say blue and you say blue dog, I'm going to say blue dog music. I don't know where that came from, but let it just come.
Yeah, that's true. And the scarcity mentality and fear mentality wants to keep our ideas to ourselves. And sometimes it can be that, blue dog music. When you're in a team, it might start off as your idea, but because you're in a team, it gets massaged and developed, and then it gets passed up.
Right.
And there might be someone else in that team who thinks, well, actually it was their idea and so instead of thinking in terms of what was mine, who gets the credit here, it does take generosity of spirit to be able to go, you know what, we are a team. And let's not forget, when you are working for a company and you come up with IP, usually you give that up to the company. It belongs to them. It's not yours.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. When you refer to that, absolutely. Look, I work on events. When you work on an event, whether you work on an event or the theater, right? Film, when you're working on a project, everyone's idea gets put in that pot. It's sort of the ingredients, to the recipe, right? That you stir it up and it all comes out like magic. But excuse me, I think there's a big difference in something that's stolen from you, something that you contribute to, something that you're a part of, and some place that you can make a difference in. But getting back to the resilience is trusting yourself. And I think I shared with you, Trish, how, in my book, how my book, right? How I made that reference to Maslow. No, well, I wanted to show everybody this because I think it's important that on the very top of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, creativity, followed by vitality, followed by self-actualization, meaning the whole person.
Yeah.
So what does that say about the creative mind is that it's a very developed mind. It's a very heightened mind in terms of awareness.
No, that's very good. Now, while we're talking about your book, where can people buy your book?
Oh, thank you very much. On Amazon, actually. Yeah, Amazon. Okay. And the name of my book is What Color is Your Event? It's a
Okay.
resource book. Yeah, it's actually meant to have fun with. Open a page, be inspired, and let your brain work on its own, right? To interpret whatever you need at that time. And I think that that's another thing with creativity too, Trish, is when I say the color red to you, you picture red. In your red, I picture my red. There's no one red. There's hundreds of reds, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah, and with what you offer, it's not just about events, obviously, but the book would be
Right.
great anyway. And I want to screen share your website.
Oh, thank you.
So, yeah,
Thank
let me
you.
just where are we going?
Yes, I do. And while you're doing that, I just like to, share again, like what we started to talk about is in business.
Mm.
Now, businesses are all challenged by what their new format will be. Thank you. What their new format will be. How will they be conducting business? What will the choices be for their employees? Employees want to go back to work full time? Are they going to work remote? Are they going to be a hybrid combination of both? So all of this is creative thinking. All of this
It
is
is.
innovative
Yeah.
thinking. Creativity is coming up with solutions, isn't it? And being open to
Look,
what's next.
it really is. And sometimes companies can be a bit frightened to let people work from home,
Right.
but it's not that the problem is people working from home. It's the mechanisms you put in place to maximize that working from home.
Mhm.
Because if you expect it to look exactly like they are in the office, it's not going to work. But if
Right.
it's flexible and there is some accountability, so that there's evidence of doing the work, you can measure it somehow,
Right.
then it's worthwhile. But you don't throw out the idea of, working from home doesn't work for my company because people just slack off. And it's like, well, no, that's not necessarily the reason.
Not necessarily at all. Most
This
people
isn't
are
all
working.
that.
Yeah.
You've got to put the creative mechanisms in place, or the innovation requires, and you can work that out together.
Well,
How
let
will
me
you
give you,
know
let me
what you
give you like let me give you an example. For example, you want to have a creative experience at home working. Companies are now investing in gamification. So if I'm going to stay online and be working online, let there be a pop-up every so often of something for me to participate in and have fun, so that I'm not just staring at the screen. Now,
right,
granted, there's a lot of work to be done.
Yep.
We have to
connecting
do
with
our work.
other members.
Yeah. We have to do our work first, but there could be a break during the day, and that break could be time to play a card game with someone. I mean, there's so many different options that are coming up now that I find very exhilarating. Because they're fun, right?
Yeah, and it can even be just a 5-minute consult with the rest of the team, just to check in and see how you're doing, and
Exactly.
to encourage one another. There's all sorts of things that we can do there. Now, I want to come back to your website. So I've
Thank
got
you.
that ready here.
Yeah.
Now, where would you like people to go on that? I'm gonna have that open on my screen, and you tell me where to scroll.
I think just staying on this window is good for what we're speaking about right now,
Yep.
Trish, because it's business, and creativity is all about strategy and direction, isn't it? And focusing on what was that phrase years ago, is know where you want to go, know where you'd like to end up, and how you get there is the creative process. And in the creative process, there are many tools, and there are many games, and what are they based on? They're based on human interaction. So, and that goes back to the theater, the developmental drama training that I have, because it allows people to voice ideas. And when you get ideas out there, then the term that's used is springboarding. So
Right.
you have something on the table, and then someone says, yes, that reminds me of this, and maybe we could do that. And before you know it, you have a new Dyson vacuum cleaner, right?
Yeah.
Or you have the electric car, or you have something going to Mars, right?
That's awesome.
Because you're working on it without anything inhibiting you, right?
Right.
And so on my website, when I speak about strategies, when I work with someone, I won't work with them without identifying a checklist of what the business objectives and goals are behind it.
Right. Now, what I want to do in the last few minutes that we have,
Mhm.
I would like to maybe get a little personal, because
Okay.
you are a creative, and there are characteristics of us creatives that can be quite discouraging. We can have these rabbit holes, and yes, we can have our goal. But what do you, because, and our theme is resilience, and I want to tie that in. How have you, during the times when, you've needed to be creative and maybe you feel a bit dry, or that, things haven't gone all that well, what are some strategies as a creative? What experience have you had personally to get your head back in the game that might be of benefit to those out there who are creatives? Or because we have talked about those who don't think they're creative, or are a bit fearful of offering their idea, but for those who are creatives, when we do get so discouraged sometimes and we feel a bit scatty. So talk to me
Right.
about your personal experience with getting that sorted.
Right. My favorite topic. Okay. Firstly, I want to say this. Everyone is creative. Every single human being on this planet is creative. The most creative person in my life is my accountant.
Ooh. Yeah.
Creativity in a different way. Anyone who thinks of solutions, build things, the people who build roads, infrastructures, highways, brilliant minds. You don't have to have pink hair and, carry kinds of crazy things like this and do all sorts of things to have people say, oh, she's a creative. But there are those of us who maybe let it out more in a different way, in a more expressive way. And there are times when I've been very challenged myself of, don't they see the idea that I have? Don't they understand? Who are they, right? Maybe I don't understand the whole picture. So one of the things, and like you brought up, being creative, what are some of the characteristics? We're impulsive, sometimes hard to focus, sometimes time and time management is not in our landscape. This is just part of the traits and the characteristics. So what I find works with me, and what is very important to me to stay balanced, is having structure in my life. Now, if that structure, and especially during the pandemic, and I said this from the first day of the pandemic and lockdown, is make sure that you keep a structure. My structure is walking Monday, Wednesday, Friday. In between is doing my yoga classes. But every single morning, Trish, I roll out of bed, I put my workout clothes on, I grab my yoga mat, and for 20 minutes, I'm doing my stretches and 10 minutes of meditation. That's critical for Dianne Devitt's mind to stay focused during the day, no matter what I do. So that is absolute medicine for me over the years. And then the other thing that I do is I will sit down on my desk, and I learned this as a young girl. The thing that I don't want to do the most is the thing that I do first. So if I have bills to pay, and I have accounting to do, and I have things to do that aren't the most exciting to me as planning and stimulating and going nuts, no, I do those first. I do those when I'm in a zone, after my meditation, when I'm calm, when I'm focused, before the energy of the world comes on. And I've also learned that I work best early morning or I work best late at night. And during the day, I focus on doing other things. I can be interviewed, I can be doing this, I can be doing that. So where's my quiet time that I can spend time listening so that I can hear my own mind speak?
Right.
Yep.
That's so good. That there's gold right there.
Thank
And creatives need to have that routine and to do the stuff that's most important first. It reminds me of that book, Eat That Frog.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
doing those things
Yes.
first. Well done, Dianne
Yes.
Devitt.
No, Trish, and then I will leave you with one more secret that I think will help
Sure.
everybody is write things down. Always have a little book. And I love the name of this book. Do you want to know what it says? Decomposition book. Decomposition. Chill out. So when you get things off of your head isn't spinning all the time.
Yeah, I
Right?
love that. I keep a little notepad for the distractions when I'm trying to work on something. It's like, oh, you must ring that person. Oh, you must do this or that.
Exactly.
It
No,
goes
you
down.
must do nothing. Write it down. Right?
Yeah. And trying not to say must and have to, and saying I get to do this.
I
So,
want to. Right. Exactly.
I want to. Yeah, I love that. Dianne Devitt, wow. What a powerhouse of ideas and encouragement. And you've taught us that creativity is not just about balloons and color and paint. It's about innovation, about coming up with ideas and having the courage to offer ideas in the workplace and not being afraid to speak up. Even if you think that it's not a very welcoming environment, sometimes that can be just in your head. And even if it's not, offer it anyway.
Right.
And not be afraid of people stealing your ideas, because it's inside you. It's come from you. There's going to be more. It's not like there's been one idea and you've offered it, someone knocked it off, and that's the end of you. There's so much more. This has been such a pleasure to talk with you, Dianne Devitt.
Thank you.
And what I wanted there
Yes.
is, it's DianneDevitt.com.
Thank you.
DianneDevitt.com. And visit Dianne's website and get in touch with her for and have a look at her programs. And not just that might be for you as an individual, but also if you have a company that you would like to get some more creative and innovative ideas and get your team juices going, so that it just has that refreshing, especially after this messy, awful time of lockdown, that now is the time to refresh and innovate and come up with new ideas so that you come bursting out of the gates for the new season that's coming for you. So thank you so much for joining us, Dianne. It has been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
And, yeah, so goodness me, there's a lot of creativity out there. And if you would like Dianne to come into your company as a consultant, as a speaker, as a workshop facilitator, that would be great. And if you would like leadership, change and resilience training, call me. So see you next time.
Bye.